In order for the public record to accurately reflect who is providing testimony, I ask that you please state your name and any organization you represent before beginning your testimony. Elected public officials will be allowed 5 minutes, and everyone else will be allowed 3 minutes each. Extra time will be given for translation if needed. We ask that you stay within your time limit because we want to make sure everyone who wants to speak has a chance to be heard. I also want to note that each speaker is only able to speak once at each hearing. While you may have the option to rejoin the speaker queue, please note that we cannot accept additional testimony at this hearing. I want to take a moment to recognize that this is where we listen to you. This is your opportunity to comment on the proposals, and we are here to listen. We will not be able to answer questions during your testimony. Before you begin your remarks, please state your name and the organization you represent, if any. Please note that all statements, including any personal information, such as name, email address, or telephone number you provide in the statement, are releasable to the public upon request and may be posted on WMATA's website without change, including any personal information provided. Further testimony may be submitted and must be received by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, February 15th. That testimony can be submitted online at wmata.com/budget. Online, you have the option to complete a survey, write free-form comments, and upload a letter, petition, or other document. You can also mail testimony to Office of the Secretary, WMATA, 600 5th Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20001. Again, all testimony must be received by 5 p.m. on February 15th. We encourage everyone to submit comments online if possible. Your comments will become part of the public record that will be reviewed by the Metro Board of Directors. Changes to the options presented here tonight may be proposed in response to testimony received and subsequent staff analysis. And now it's time to call the first witness. As a reminder, please tell us your name and any organization you represent before you start speaking. We are going to begin with the first 5 speakers who are testifying via video. First will be Amy Johnson, followed by Caitlin Roger, followed by Alex Baca, followed by Ron Thompson, followed by Max Richmond. After that, we'll turn to in-person speakers and then go to the phone queue before continuing with video testimony and so on. Ms. Johnson.
So Ms. Johnson is not on the Zoom with us, so we will go to our next speaker, Caitlin Roger.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Good evening, WMATA Board of Directors. DC Sustainable Transportation is a nonprofit organization that brings together business, advocacy, and government entities to make DC a global leader with frequent, rapid, safe, affordable, and reliable transportation to, from, and around DC job centers. DCST supports several elements of the FY23 budget by maintaining bus services, improving frequency on some lines, and restoring some of the lines cut during the pandemic. WMATA is ensuring that the essential workers that have held up our economy and services during the pandemic can count on getting where they're going, which is vital to our economic and social recovery as a region. Making bus and rail transfers free for riders is sensible from both an equity and a ridership retention perspective. We are pleased to see this change made permanent in the 2023 budget. It's notable that the revenue projections rely on an increase of 135% of rail riders in 2023 on 2022 ridership, which is still significantly lower than pre-pandemic levels. While the return of rail riders at this level would bring some comfort financially, not just to WMATA, the uncertainty of the pandemic draws this projection into question and highlights the need for more systemic regional thinking about how to restore transit ridership. Incentives are nice, but it can't be up to WMATA alone to try and lure riders back. Having noted these positive features of the 2023 budget, DCST would turn our attention to efforts which hopefully have started and will ramp up publicly throughout the 2023 budget cycle to uphold WMATA's financial sustainability in the less immediate but still short term. As for many transit agencies, federal aid has propped up WMATA during this unprecedented period of lost revenue. But as that begins to dry up in 2024, that must be a plan not just in place, but fully operational by 2024. We need not remind those present of the fundamental value of a strong transit system to our economy and society. Simply put, the DMV doesn't function as a region without it. With the lack of public dialogue and policy maker attention as to how to deal with this looming issue means that we need to focus on it more. Some options include adjusting the 3% cap on how much DC, Maryland, and Virginia's contributions to WMATA's budget can grow. This just makes horse sense given the cost of almost everything rise by more than that. A regional road pricing system that recognizes the great cost that car-based mobility has imposed in the region from congestion, equity, environmental, and health standpoints. Congressional contributions to WMATA's operational budget, as the Metro Now Coalition has called for historically. A revitalized plan for raising revenue through WMATA's considerable land ownership. What if each jurisdiction adopted bills similar to the Metro 4 DC bill currently under consideration in DC, which allocates funding to underwrite residents' transit trips each month? Most of these options take time to put into place, and they are by no means solely up to WMATA. But what I suggest for kind of shorter term among them, adjusting this 3% cap and obtaining congressional funding for operations might be managed in a year. Shorter term options that could keep on a balanced footing while a longer term plan is operationalized could include temporary bailouts from the jurisdictions or for WMATA to run a pilot or other program that USDOT could fund. These shorter term ideas are not sustainable approaches, but just last year, WMATA was forced to create a dire, already off the fiscal cliff budget that took up a lot of staff hours and created an atmosphere of instability.
Okay, Ms. Rager, we are over time for you, so we need to wrap it up.
All right, thanks very much. I'll just say that most solutions do require that regional lens, and that shows up very clearly for WMATA. And I appreciate your time, everybody. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rager, for your comments. And now we're going to hear from the next speaker. I think it may just take us a minute to queue them up. Okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alex Baca, and I am testifying on behalf of Greater Washington, where I serve as the DC Policy Director. GGWash supports the passage and implementation of the FY2023 budget. We like that it eliminates the transfer penalty from bus to rail and modestly restores some lines and services cut during the pandemic. We hope that WMATA will not renege on the frequency and headway commitments made last year prior to the 7000 series failure. However, we are largely looking beyond the upcoming fiscal year to FY24 with the assumption that the federal funding will be lacking then, leaving WMATA with around a $500 million budget deficit. Accepting this as an inevitable outcome due to factors outside of WMATA's control, such as coronavirus, rider preferences, the feds turning off the money printer, whatever, is one option, which I believe will lead to a good deal of hand-wringing, finger-pointing, and futzing around the edges to make things less bad. None of that will work and will instead result in a region in which there's functionally no Metro bus or Metro rail. That is a future that I am not particularly interested in living in. You just heard from my colleague, Caitlin Rager. In her testimony on behalf of the DC Sustainable Transportation Coalition, she proposed a number of sound ideas for closing this gap. GGWash supports all of them as well. I would note that what is of particular interest to us is developing but not selling off WMATA's land so that people can live densely near transit. That's really, really big for us, as well as a regional road pricing system. Drivers cause a lot of externalities for people. It's congestion, slowdowns for transit riders, poor air quality, and other health and environmental damages. They should pay for that, and that should go to transit. We are extremely interested in ensuring also that bus service is not sacrificed at the expense of rail service when we do hit the inevitable scarcity mindset. During the pandemic, WMATA's truest riders have shown up on the bus. I am familiar with the never-ending tension between the district and its suburban neighbors and the preference each holds for what type of service. I think we need to think more expansively than that in a time of crisis, which we are going to approach. This testimony was a little on the fly. I'm frustrated. I'm, looking down a long line of having to see support for transit go away. And I hope that the board, as well as the elected officials that appoint you, are prepared to take this on rather than just evading it. I'll submit more detailed testimony in writing by the deadline. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Baca, for your comments. And let's go to the next speaker.
Okay, I don't see Ron Thompson here, so next will be Max Richmond.
Good evening. My name is Max Richmond. I'm a DC resident of 18 years. I'm on the board of the Deanwood Citizens Association. I'm part of the Friends of Deanwood Library, and I'm the Bicycle Advisory Council member for Ward 7 here in Washington, DC. The DC Metro brought me to DC from California 18 years ago, and it's kept me here. And it allowed me to be car free for 17 years up until last year when we finally got a car for the house. I want to appreciate and acknowledge how transformative this is and continues to be for all of DC, including Deanwood, where we live, which is in the northeast, far northeast of DC, right on the border of PG County in Maryland, the last stop on the Orange Line before you head out to Maryland. I want to talk about two main topics here that are really important in Deanwood and east of the river. Number one, I want to talk about the Deanwood Metro parking lot. I walked by it today. There are 194 parking spots in that parking lot. Today at 5 p.m., when you would expect the peak amount of vehicles, people returning to their vehicles to go home, there were 3 cars in the parking lot. This is a 1.6 acre park that was designated in 2018 by the WMATA board for joint development to create a transformative development, which could include a grocery store. There have been dozens of grocery stores in the Deanwood area when this was a segregated area that was not part of DC. It was a historic African-American community that was segregated. There were only Jewish and Black grocery stores when those communities could not participate in downtown DC. But today there are 0 grocery stores. It would be transformative for WMATA to put to action this plan from 2018 to put the project up for joint development and to really engage the community to make sure it is a community-centered vision for this project. Today, the community has a vision. We have a small area plan. We have funding lined up, $24 million for a library, and we have a grocery bill that can fund this, that's already funding a grocery store over at Capitol View, the site that Walmart abandoned and left everybody hanging on. So please, as you stated at your own hearing, ridership and revenue are the key things you're thinking about. Developing at the Deanwood Station would accomplish both of those things and would provide a transformative development that can lead to economic development. Transit-oriented development, we've seen the success at Rhode Island Avenue and elsewhere. Let's do that in Deanwood. The second point I want to make is about the bus. I want to echo what the other speakers have said. We are very ambitious with rail. That's great. Silver Line, taking it all the way over here and whatever. Let's get that ambitious with the bus. Let's not just think about the bus rides that we need to get from point A to point B nearby, but let's think about commuter buses. Let's think about dedicated lanes of buses on freeways. Let's think about how, as a regional entity, we can really make the bus work, not just for low-income folks, but for everyone. People should get out of their single occupancy vehicles and want to get into a bus because it's cheaper and faster and safer than the dangerous roads that they have to drive on. With that, I want to say thank you again, DC Metro. I love what the Metro does. I just want you to bring that economic development to Deanwood at our Deanwood Metro Station, engage the community in doing so, and please also think bigger about the bus. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Mr. Richmond, for those comments. Now I think we can pivot from video to in-person testimony. And so I have here folks, I think hopefully in the order that they showed up. So can we start with Ed Gitterman?
There are more people on Zoom, you know.
Yeah, I think we are going to go back to Zoom. We're going to kind of take turns, Zoom,
Okay.
in person.
Sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
Totally understand this is confusing for everyone, but we are gonna do this.
Thank you.
But let's make it Mr. Gitterman's turn, and we will be back. We're not going to forget about Zoom.
Oh, thank you.
And sir, these mics are great. You absolutely do not need to take your mask off to be heard. We are going to hear you.
Okay, I'll try it on it. Okay. Okay, here we go. I am Ed, MTA New York Gitterman from Bethesda, Maryland, representing me. First things first, I do not support your Metro Rail service hours, and B, your Metro Rail's proposed fares. Number one is that your Metro Rail Future Purple line, local bus carriers inside and right near DC, should run 24/7 service 365 days a year. To provide an essential service, except for bad weather, transit strike, etc., mass transit should A, be out there for everybody and for all trip purposes in this area. As for number two, I still believe that a DMV switch to an intermodal flat fare structure plus fare media like the Big Apple should occur in this area, and it should be at all times. As I have said in the past, your Metro Rail fare structure can nickel and dime a low-income person to death, and I believe it's the leading reason that low-income people take a bus instead of your Metro Rail. There are other reasons, but I don't have the time for them. So with that said, I will try to wind up my 3 minutes as best as I can. In 1980, I lived in New York when the TAN map Stella took its Grumman flexible 870 buses out of service and temporarily/partially replaced them with old mothballed vehicles, plus old used vehicles, from Metro Bus. Now here I am 20 years in the DC area with another fiasco, this one caused by your 7K rail cars. The bottom line here is that management should just fix these high-tech lemons and return them to service PDQ. So in closing, let me say again seriously that if it was totally possible, I would move back to the Big Apple to live out my life. And I am 65, folks. But aside from that, I ask that you please hold all replies to my testimony for and make them in editorial form to your Washington Post newspaper. And folks, I've already been vaccinated, so you have nothing to worry about. Thanks.
Mr. Gitterman, thank you very much for your comments. And I think we can go to the next speaker, who is going to be Michael Golash. Whatever makes you comfortable.
My name is Mike Golash. I'm a DC resident, and I mainly like to address my comments today to the operating budget. Metro's budget is a political document. It determines who will pay for the operating costs of the system. Metro essentially sells a service to the various state and local governments. This service has allowed many businesses and developers to make a great deal of money and permit the federal government to function in an efficient way. Metro services also reduces the cost of congestion for many companies and has a positive effect on the fight against global warming. Many essential workers depend on Metro's system to get to work. The cost of public transportation for many of them can be a significant cost. In 2019, Metro's operating budget was approximately $2 billion, but about $825 million generated mostly from fares, except for about $146 million of that from other sources of revenue like advertising, et cetera. The rest of the money is provided for out of state and local governments' payments. The state and local government money is not a subsidy, which is a misnomer. It is a payment for service provided by Metro to these jurisdictions. In normal times, the federal government provides no money for operating the system. To create a more equitable budget that reflects the needs of the working people in the region, I propose 1, elimination of all fare collection. Make Metro a public good like the schools, the fire department, libraries, and so on. 2, work with the state and local governments to create a transportation tax which taxes business and developers that benefit from the service that Metro provides. There's been many studies to show the tremendous wealth that's been created by the system for business and developers in this region. They should be followed. 3, work with the federal government to have them pay the true cost of providing Metro service for their workers. The current federal rider subsidy does not cover the real cost of the service. Inequality has grown in recent years in this region. particularly during the pandemic. Eliminating fares will reverse this process. There is already some traction in this region for no bus fare. It's been done with Dash in Alexandria, partly with Ride On in Montgomery County, but it does not extend to the rail. The problem of creating a low-cost bus system and an expensive rail system leads to discrimination. Poor people ride the buses, better off people ride the rail, and we create more inequality, and that process has to stop. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Golash, for those remarks. We're now going to go to Steve Caffin. I really think we need to keep our masks on, folks. We've got mics right here. This is for everyone's safety, and it's also a mandate from the mayor.
Hi. Steve Caffin, and I live in Northwest DC, and I'm a member of WMATA's Accessibility Advisory Committee, Bus Rail Subcommittee. I've been on both for about almost 8 years, and also Bus Transformation Project. And I ride numerous bus routes during the week. And so I'm going to focus my comments principally on bus services. And if you'd like further information on the details, just kind of know where you can find me. So, also, some of these things, a wish list. I know we're dealing with budget priorities and we're very sensitive to it, but there's no reason not to go ahead and just talk about some of these things. Most important thing, I think, is that the board move forward with its fair policy objective. I think the overall objectives are excellent. And it's just what's needed in this difficult time when budget priorities are dictating what needs to be done. And I think the fair policy objectives are critical and excellent. They should include fair parity and also flat metro access fares. It makes sense. It's much easier to control from a financial standpoint. And from a standpoint of parity, it's just proper and correct. Also, implement the recommendations of the Bus Transformation Project. We actually had a meeting about 10 days ago and talked about priorities. And interestingly, the one that came out was the review and redesign, if necessary, of the bus configuration, both locally and regionally, and their integration. And I totally concur with that being the top piece. And we actually have a meeting in about a week. And so I'm very excited about the bus transformation projects moving ahead. Some other things quickly to mention. I think we should establish in the Office of the Chief Operating Officer a bus customer support group or ombudsman. And this person, a group would be customers' go-to point and advocate, and would follow up customers' comments, concerns, and suggestions. One line that I want to mention that definitely needs increased frequency is the number 42, which serves DuPont Circle. The frequency was cut by 50%, and we really need to increase that because that's a critical point for so many of the users. Boy, we have so much to say, but one thing that if we can in the budget is to
Mr. Caffin, I am so sorry. We are at time, but I just want to remind you, you can submit what you have there in writing.
Actually, I have it in much more detail than I was
exactly.
able to
Like, let's get that in the record. Everyone can read it. Go ahead and submit that. WMATA.com/budget.
Great.
Okay. And
Thank
now
you
we're
very
going to go to Denise Rush. Yeah, we're just going to optimize that mic a little.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening. My name is Denise Rush. I am the vice chair of the AAC committee for WMATA. I am the vice chair of Metro Access Committee, subcommittee, and I am the vice president for the National Federation for the Blind for Flagel Creek. What I want to talk about, I have 3 points. Number one, I would like a flat rate for Metro Access users at all time. I've watched it go from $2.25, $2.50, $3, $7, $6.50. Can we have a flat rate? Everybody is watching their budget, counting their dollars. If we know what we're supposed to pay, we can try to budget it in as best we can. But the different fares, the variable fares, is not working. So I hope that is a good consideration. Number two, I think we need a pass for frequent Metro Access users. You have it for visitors who come in town. You have for people who use them every day and travel. We should have them for users for Metro Access, a pass for people who go 6 times a week to dialysis or go to work every day. They should get a discount for using their service. Also, I am born and raised in Washington, D.C. all my life. Started with D.C. Transit. And we used to get 10 tokens for $1. So when I got paid, I got 2 bags of tokens so I could go back and forth to work, to school, or wherever, because I knew how much I had to pay. So we have to get something so that it will look out for everyone, and especially the elderly and handicapped people. We want it to be treated fairly, just fairly, not extra, not special, but fairly. Everybody else has passes. Why can't Metro Access users have passes? Now, DC started with the bus system and it was very strong. You could go anywhere. I've done the 80, the 40 bus, the 16th Street bus, the 14th Street bus, all the numbers. We went everywhere. Make the bus system stronger. Don't weaken it. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Rush, thank you so much for your comments and for taking the time to come down here. Thank you. Next, we're going to go to Paul Semmelford. I think we actually could do that, but I see what you're saying. We are going to bring the mic to you.
Thank you. My name is Paul Simmelfort, and I am a member of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. I am the Metro Access Subcommittee chairperson, but I'm speaking as an individual tonight. So a few points as my colleagues before me went over, I'm just going to go over briefly. We support the Metro Board's new fare policy objectives, keeping things simple, equitable, and sustainable. As stated before, we are looking for the support of a flat fare for Metro Access users and riders that is simple, equitable, and sustainable and acceptable to the FTA, because we have a lot of users that are on fixed income and would like to have a fixed fare so they can budget, accordingly to go to the critical things and places that they need to go, like anyone else who's non-disabled. We also support the equitable bus service for currently underserved areas. And as a resident of Prince George's County, that tends to happen to us a lot. So please keep the bus routes open, staying, longer so people can get to places where they need to go. And particularly, I put the plug in for Prince George's County. And we also support the implementation of the bus transformation project report. And that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Semmelford and Mr. Caffin, I would just like to thank you both for your service on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and thank you so much for your comments. We are now going to go to testimony from the phone. I would like to remind those listening on the phone that you need to press *3 to be put in the speaker's queue. So now I'm going to ask Mr. Reyes, do we have anyone in the phone speaker queue? Can we get someone from that?
Yes, I'm going to open up the queue for the phone ending in 1503. I'm sorry, 8151, phone number 8151. I'm opening up your line.
Hello?
We can hear you.
You can go ahead and speak 8151.
If we could repivot to Zoom callers, I think we're going to need to relink the phone bridge. So our next.
That's fine. I think we need to, let's take a look at what we have going on in terms of the phone tech. I know we do have people waiting on Zoom, so let's head back there.
So next on Zoom is going to be Debbie Brown. And for those of you on the phone, we'll come back to you as soon as we sort out those phone issues. Thanks for your patience.
Hello, my name is Debbie Brown, and I live in Rockville, Maryland. And I am president of the Sligo Creek chapter of the National Federation of the Blind of Maryland. And I did at one time serve on the Accessibility Advisory Committee for many years. I am was a frequent user of almost daily user of WMATA services until I started working from home. So I do occasionally still have to go into my office, and so unfortunately the problems with the rail really do. I'm very glad I don't have to do that every day, because the last trip I spent about 2 hours going one way and a little over 2 hours going the other way, and I used to spend an hour and 15 minutes going in, and then sometimes an hour and a half, maybe a little more on getting home. So that trips are getting longer and longer. And part of that is the rail service problems, but also part of that is that bus routes are being chopped up so that more people have to use the rail. And that is not, you don't have a choice. But it also does increase the cost, so that the flat rail rates at any time are a good idea. But so that I'm in support of any simplification of fare structure, and that is true for all people. But especially that Metro Access fare structure, it is really based on absolutely nothing. When you decide you're going to pay more to take the rail, you've decided that's what you want to do. And if you could probably get a bus route that would take you several hours, and you don't have a choice in what they do to you with Metro Access. You just have to pay that fare structure based on somebody's weird calculation. There's no logic to that at all. That fare structure needs to be simplified. It is something that somebody should be able to budget for, and if we can afford to cut fare for other people, we can afford to cut fare for Metro Access as well. So it would be sensible to simplify that fare structure. And also, we should really modernize our bus service in Montgomery County. There are a lot of creative things being done. They should be done through the rest of the region and thoughtfully, because we want to have safe streets. We have to think about some of the policies aren't going to work that are being tried out in the suburbs are not going to work in parts of the district, but we really do need to think of ways to make our buses more provide better service to people throughout the area. Thank you.
Ms. Brown, thank you very much for those comments. Are we going to keep going with some Zoom here, or are we ready to head back to the phone?
We're going to keep going with some Zoom. Next is Talib Din Akhta.
Thank you very much. Good evening, distinguished members of WMATA's board. My name is Taladin Ukhtar. I'm the president of Northern Bus Bar Neighbors, a nonprofit forum to improve the quality of life around the Northern Division Bus Garage. We are also one of 26 members of the Metro Electric Bus Coalition, made up of environmentalists and scientists. Our collaboration with them is the best and first opportunity we have to get the electrification of Northern's bus fleet up and running long before 2045. The authorities claim that Northern will be the first full service, 100% all electric garage is not reflected in the proposed $400 million budget. And of that $400 million, we estimate $40 million will be spent on equipment, materials, placement, and mounds of human capital in monitoring all the aspects of a functioning diesel bus garage and not an electrified one. We've attended every WMATA community engagement meeting, testified before this board, HPRB, the council, the mayor's agent, and served as a consulting party under NEPA Section 106. We've seen the plans, and I can assure this board that approving this portion of the budget without further scrutiny would be a misstep. The Northern Bus Garage Replacement Project sits on a 5.5 acre site. That's roughly 270 football fields. That's by all accounts presents with a good face. However, first to be all electric, while it sounds good, in reality, they're doing no more than putting lipstick on a pig. At the end of the day, unless something dramatic occurs, like pushing up the year for all electric buses be made a part of the fleet, especially at Northern, when it reopens in 2028, after spending millions of unaccounted for dollars on underground fluid tanks and a mid-level air filtration system that extracts diesel particulate matter from the inside before it travels outside, is not our idea of being 100% electric. Northern officials know the shelf life of this diesel facility is at best 8 to 10 years before those millions invested will become obsolete, and the air filtration system will be no more than a glorified rooftop ornament. Northern's rehab as an all-electric garage is an experiment in learning what not to do. They will hopefully learn from their mistakes, but none of those mistakes going in should be how to spend, waste, or blow money needlessly. We're urging you to scrutinize the NBG rehab more closely, ask the hard questions that we have, see for yourselves how uncertain they are in making this facility all electric, safe for our community and their own drivers and staff.
We are at time. I am so sorry to
Our aim is to
interrupt.
protect not just our own health, but that of the world.
I
We're
do
just
have to
starting
interrupt.
on 14th Street between Buchanan and Decatur. Thank you. And you let everybody else go over. So I don't know why you're
Sir,
cutting
I've
me
been
off.
pretty good
I
about
don't
holding
appreciate
everyone
it.
to time. I really
You're not holding
appreciate you
everyone to
taking the time.
I've been timing everyone, and you have not done that. So don't play games with me.
I am
Thank you.
here to listen,
I'm
not
done.
to play games. Thank you for your comments. And it's the next person's chance in the queue.
So we have our final Zoom speaker, Elliot Nagan, and then we will go to the phone lines. Apologies for those that have been waiting on the phone. We think we have the issue resolved.
Good evening. Thanks for letting me speak to that tonight. My name is Elliot Nagan. I'm a DC resident, and I work for the Union of Concerned Scientists. And tonight I'm representing a coalition of 26 environmental, labor, faith, and community organizations. The bus plan that the Metro Board approved last June is woefully inadequate. Scientists tell us that we have to cut our carbon emissions in half by the end of this decade, but according to your plan, more than 80% of Metro's bus fleet will be still running on fossil fuels in 2030. 2030 is the same year that LA and Houston plan to have all electric bus fleets, and bus fleets in Chicago, Seattle, and New York will be electrified by 2040. Metro's zero emission target date of 2045 is indefensible. If you are serious about protecting public health and the climate, you have to move faster. Metro's diesel and natural gas buses, which emit carbon pollution, particulate matter, and nitrogen oxides, pose a significant threat to public health. Diesel bus pollution has been linked to cancer, heart disease, and premature death. And like diesel buses, natural gas buses emit hydrocarbons, which have been linked to lung disease, and nitrogen oxides, the main component of smog. Now, smog exacerbates allergies and asthma, which is a major health problem in the district. An estimated 11.4% of DC residents suffer from the disease, nearly 40% higher than the national average. The transportation sector also accounts for 40% of the carbon emissions in the DMV, and a high percentage of those emissions come from trucks and buses. Why do we need to cut carbon? From January through August of last year, Washingtonians suffered through more than 40 days at or above 90 degrees. If we don't slash emissions, it will get a lot worse. By mid-century, the district would experience an average of 83 days a year with a heat index of above 90 degrees, including 41 days above 100 degrees. Regardless, Metro is planning to continue to buy fossil fuel buses until 2030. It also plans to increase the percentage of natural gas buses in its fleet from 30% to 50%, despite the fact that life cycle carbon pollution from a natural gas bus is at most 6% lower than that of a conventional diesel bus. And in many cases, it's about the same. Electrifying half of Metro's fleet, conversely, by 2030 would save the agency $350 million in lifetime operation and maintenance costs, dramatically reduce toxic air pollution, and cut annual carbon dioxide emissions by more than 58,000 tons. Transit agencies across the country and smaller agencies here in our region are facing the same challenges to electrify their fleets as Metro. But unlike Metro, they're addressing them head on and have ambitious plans to transition as quickly as possible. There is absolutely no reason why Metro can't do the same. I urge the board, the newly constituted board, to revisit this plan and make it better. It is not acceptable in its form, the form it's in right now.
Sir, we are at time for you as well.
All right, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I appreciate it.
Mr. Nagan, thank you very much for those comments. And I think that's it for Zoom speakers, and that it's really the chance of folks who've been waiting on the phone. I just want to remind everyone who is on the phone that they need to press *3 in order to be put in the speaker's queue. So let's go to the phones now, and also a reminder for folks to introduce themselves.
Caller 8151, I'm going to unmute your line.
I think we are still struggling a little bit on the tech side. I want to apologize to everyone who is waiting on the phone. I see people actively working on this.
8151, you can speak.
Yes, thank you. I don't know how much you've heard so far, but you know me. It's Phil Posner. Good evening.
Hi, Phil. Could you start at the beginning, please?
Okay. I'm Phil Posner, Chair of the AAC, resident of Arlington County. These comments reflect input from friends, family, members of the public, and disability groups. I see a lot of them. I consult for the FDA. I lobby for the MS Society on Capitol Hill. I volunteer at the Library of Congress Information Desk. And much of what you have heard so far this evening is what I have heard from these people also. Transportation is an essential public service. The mission of WMATA is to provide safe, equitable, reliable, and cost-effective public transit. There is approval of your new equity initiatives, as well as the new fare policies. The GM's proposal to continue his attempts to increase ridership with flat fares on the weekends and late hours is something everybody is happy with. The one expansion is for the disability community that uses Metro Access, and to extend these flat fares to 24/7. And you've already heard that from other members of the AAC. It actually is a win-win because by doing this, and also the passes that Ms. Rush asked for, it will lower the amount of work staff has to do in scheduling, and also be able to do efficient scheduling and straight line trips. Therefore, not only does the rider know what they are paying and prepare for it, but Metro can give the most efficient ride. And so it is a win-win-win. Implementation of the bus transformation project is important. It will address fares, but also service to underserved communities. Right now, and you're aware of Fairfax County, Alexandria County, and certainly Prince George's County, they need work. And the possibility of microtransit as being implemented in Montgomery County to bus hubs that has been suggested is a great thing to think of. We've also suggested autonomous vehicles for these shuttles as done in other regions. So I'll end with the concept that transportation is an essential service and a right, and may be sustained by collaboration between stakeholders, local, state, federal entities, as well as private business, educational, health, and charitable groups. In other jurisdictions like Seattle, Kansas City, New Orleans, NCAA, NAACP contributes to bus ridership. Some union groups have actually contributed to paying for bus ridership. And certainly educational groups, health groups, and business groups who have their workers coming and going should contribute to this. The federal government does. Why not private business? So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you again tomorrow evening, and hopefully the phones will work a little bit better. And I'll also see you Thursday.
And we've also got our board meeting on Thursday. Thank you very much for your service on the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and thank you for those comments. I think we need to go to the next speaker on the phone.
Caller 1503, I'm going to unmute your line.
Following Phil in some of these meetings, I really hate that. I'm just kidding. I am a member of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. I've been on that committee for over 30 years, and I'm also a member of the Writers Advisory Committee, and I've been on that committee for over 15 years. And I'm going to echo a lot of what you have heard from members of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. But I first want to start by saying thank you to the board members for the support that they have given to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, coming to our meetings, listening to us with our proposal, considering our issues, and giving the seniors and people with disabilities a voice in what goes on with WMATA. The staff that we work with is top-notch. People are professional. We don't always agree. We do always advocate. They listen, and they work with us to try to move things and improve things And over the 30 years that I've been with the advisory committee, we have seen tremendous changes because of the attitudes that we've had with particularly with the board and the staff. Like Phil, I will say that I believe that the Accessibility Advisory Committee has gone on record as agreeing with the fair policies of the board, equitable, sustainable, and fair. We think that your fair policies are good. They make good sense and good business sense for people with disabilities with respect to throughout the region. With respect to Metro Access, as you have heard, we have flat fare on the weekends. We have a flat fare after 9:30 at night. We would like to extend flat fare for Metro Access to make sure that it is equitable, that it is understandable, it's fair, and it meets the requirements of the FTA. Years ago, when we took a look at Metro Access fares, combination of bus and rail and what people were paying, there were 243,000 combinations of different fares that people could get with calculations of bus and rail. No wonder Metro Access fares were so confusing for individuals, different prices going and different prices coming. Make that fare a standard flat fare. I think it's going to make it understandable and will increase effectiveness throughout the region. You've also heard bus transformation. I listened to a report at the Riders Advisory Committee meeting, and what's going on in the next 5, 10, 15 years is just amazing. The recommendation of the Bus Transformation Committee are very critical. Particularly, it's going to be critical in Prince George's County. We have heard over the last 5, 10, 15 years how dire things are in Prince George's County. They need a bus system that's going to be effective.
That is time. I'm so sorry. I know we had some trouble with your audio when you got started. Could we get your name for the record? We actually missed like the very beginning of what you said. I'm so sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Patrick Sheehan, and I'm a member of the Accessibility Advisory Committee and also a member of the RAC. I've been with the Advisory Committee for 30 years and on the RAC for 15.
And thank you for your service so much. I'm sorry to interrupt, but we do need to go to the next caller on the phone, just to keep this moving and be fair for everyone.
Yes, we're going to call her 8899. And if you could just hold a moment before you start speaking, I will give you your cue to start. There's like a delay when you start speaking. So just hold until I give you your cue. You can start talking.
Wonderful. Well, good evening, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with all of you today. My name is John Perot, and I recently moved to the Arlington, Virginia area about 6 months ago from Michigan. So public transportation is a relatively new concept for me. And having heard about the opportunity to participate in this hearing, I went back and reviewed many of the meetings, the minutes, and documents outlined over the past 3 years or so to really get up to speed on the system. And it seems that the board of directors is truly making great progress in better aligning fares to customer needs. And while these steps proposed in the 2023 budget are certainly headed in the right direction, I really urge the board to consider some additional options. With the sharp decline in overall ridership and revenue due to the pandemic, and of course the changing nature of work, the fare system should incorporate some of the new revenue models that we're seeing introduced from companies all around us. From Hulu to Netflix, HelloFresh to Walmart Plus, subscription-based services have truly become a large part of the world that we live in. And with consumer demand at an all-time high for these items, a similar approach to fares could actually increase ridership and revenue for WMATA. We typically have two types of riders on this system. We've got tourists visiting for a short time, and then we've got commuters like myself who live and work in the area. And if you're anything like me, you know that tourists love packages that give them benefits, and cost savings when they visit such a unique area like DC. So building a see-it-all WMATA ridership pass that delivers on the promise of value, safety, and reliability to tourists who are visiting for 3 to 5 days will be extremely marketable to those visiting here. And since the way we work has clearly changed as well, so should our passes. WMATA could introduce 3 unique passes focused on commuters. 1, the everyday pass for someone heading to work on the office every single day of the week. 2, a here and there pass for those with workplaces using a hybrid system of 2 to 3 days in the office a week. And 3, a TGIF pass for those who work from home permanently but enjoy a break in the city for a nice glass of wine during the weekend. Not only do you boost ridership and pass sales, but you don't lose out if someone chooses not to use their pass, even though they paid for it in full. It's the same way with Netflix, as I'm sure the board members are, if you have a Netflix subscription, you're very aware. You might only watch one show a week or maybe watch something once in a blue moon, but you keep it because you need a great show here and there, or somebody tells you to watch something popular like Squid Games or the next season of Bridgerton. You've already got easy access to it, so you don't ever end your subscription. And the same could be true with a WMATA pass. I urge the board and WMATA staff to consider approaching the fare model differently. Think scrappy like an entrepreneur. Stop depending and hoping that in 2024, when a deficit in the budget approaches, that something will save the system. We really have the power to save it now. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I appreciate all of your time.
Wow, Mr. Perot, thank you for those comments. Do we have anyone else on the phone? Okay, next.
We're going to go to caller 1546. Again, just hold. I will give you your cue to start speaking. Just hold. You may start. Speaker 1546. 1546, you may start.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm Tino Calabia, an Asian American born in Washington, D.C. A member of your Accessibility Advisory Committee. I'll be age 90 when my second term closes. The past 2 pandemic years have seemed uneventful to many of us locked in safely at home. Suddenly, the pandemic revealed this. Tens of thousands of lower-wage grocery store shelf stockers, home health aides, and hospital workers, and others are, quote, essential workers, unquote. Unlike office professionals at their home computers, essential workers couldn't stay sheltered at home. We learned that many of them, low-wage members of communities of color, had always been the silent majority of WMATA's bus passengers. Now I urge the board to preserve bus lines like the P12, T18, and others that mostly carry people of color and low income. I suggest even boosting frequency of service on such lines. Moreover, as Alexandria's Dash buses are fare-free and ride-on buses will be until at least July, consider, please, a fare-free policy for WMATA's buses or one that scales down fares to each passenger's level of need. By the way, Boston just announced that 3 Boston bus lines serving neighborhoods where low-income people of color predominate will be fare-free on a 2-year pilot basis. As for users of WMATA's Metro Access service, I want to support again Denise Rush's comments and Patrick's comments to consider flat fares and passes for Metro Access users, as they said, and others support. Thank you very much for your time.
Hello, I'm the president of Black Lives Matter for the Deaf. I'm on the accessibility commercial. I'm from Cleveland. We have anti-pass for people. We don't understand. I travel all across the country to see what other have for people whose works. People who get SSI, SSDI, even monthly pass is $48. Baltimore, $22. Okay. And the website is RTA.org. And I've been fighting for the last 2 years to have monthly pass for people. Why don't we? Why other states have? We have negative. And they say, oh, we got this, we got this. Okay. I get emails, different customers who are deaf, or my VP text me why we don't have, why it takes, why don't we don't have them? They say, oh, we're gonna put it in the next budget, and we hear nothing after nothing after nothing. It's like going through one ear, come out the other ear. We need to be treated as fair that you treat anyone else. At the same fair access that you have everyone else. Why don't we all have them on the path? I'm going to continue to fight if it takes every breath in my body to fight for the people with a disability like myself. I work for the federal government. We don't have anything for us. Thank you.
Mr. Dancy, thank you so much for your comments. Okay, we have one more in-person person here for testimony. Jermaine Franks.
How's it going? I've been was it a customer, was it a rider of the Metro for since I was 6, since as long as I can remember. I'm a ex-employee of Library of Congress and FY2023. And my opinion on Metro now is that it's kind of disappointing because there is, I don't see no employees cleaning the buses. They be dirty, and it's revolting, to say the least. And, yeah, that's the reason why I'm wearing Metro hat, because I'm dedicated to the organization in general. You know, being a writer of it now since COVID came around, honestly, and it's demoralizing. Makes me want to disassociate myself from. Excuse me. Yeah, we need more job fairs in the minority side of the town, such as Southeast, Northeast, areas like that, and Northwest. It's populated or more, pardon me, Black faces, stuff like that in general. And the hiring process is kind of difficult as well. And it's been problems on the app as well, DC Metro in particular. I think y'all need to tighten up on app development as well. I'm a little bit tech, I'll say a lot tech savvy to be a LAYC student in digital pathways. So that's how I know a lot about, routers, servers and stuff like that. And I think the fare should be decreased to the 50 cent now on since tightening up on stuff. All I need to say. Thank you.
Mr. Franks, thank you for your comments. And I think we still have folks waiting on the phone. So at this point, we're going to head back to the phone. Thank you for your patience, everyone who's on the phone. Just a reminder that you need to press *3 to be placed in the speaker's queue. And then when we connect you, there's like that pause. So like wait to introduce yourself until we are sure that we can hear you.
Caller 6072, I'm going to open your line, but just hold until I give you your cue to start. You may start. Caller 8560. No. Caller 8560, you may start.
Yes, hello. My name is Ansel Torres. I'm the president and founder of the Torres Foundation for the Blind, based in Washington, D.C. I am totally blind. I live in Silver Spring, Montgomery County. I am a bit disturbed by some of the things that I found in the Metro budget this year, starting with the general manager's opening comments. He talked about improving bus rail, and he talked about improving, Metro Rail and Metro Bus. He did not say anything about improving Metro Access. Actually, Metro Access is not even mentioned in his 475 words opening comments. That tells you something. That tells us something. It's an insult. The other concern that I have is that the advertising budget for WMATA is $4.4 million. Metro Access gets 1% of that, and it actually was because of a cut of 35.7% of whatever little budget we didn't have. I am here to advocate for free fares. The board of Metro is governed by Mr. Schmedberg. He lives in Alexandria that now has free fares, and he has a free fare benefit as a result of that. People who are disabled live on fixed incomes, yet it has been normalized at Metro to charge disadvantaged disabled individuals twice the fare. They say, oh, the law says that we can do that. Well, the law doesn't prevent you from doubling the fares for bus and rail riders, but you don't do it. That is unconscionable. I believe that we should get free fares as disabled riders because what? The net operating revenue for Metro that they get from paratransit Metro Access riders is 1% and dropping. The revenue that you get from disabled riders is something like 0.00% of the WMATA budget.
And Mr. Torres,
Metro
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but that is time. And
I will submit my comments in writing. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we do have some other folks waiting on the phone. So I think we'll go to the next phone speaker.
We're going to go back to caller 6072. You're unmuted.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, can you start again, please?
Oh, yes. Hi, so my name is Nikos Kofis, and I am a resident of Merrifield, and I use the Metro to commute to work and also to enjoy our region's nightlife and restaurants. I think some of the budget should be allocated to later weekend service, be it rail service or due to needing those hours for repairs, an OWL bus service that mirrors Metro rail stops. Metro's current hours make it clear that it is more catered to commuters, acting more like a commuter rail. It should strive to be a mode of urban transit, to set an example not only for regional transit in the DMV, such as the Purple Line, but also for the nation. There are plenty of new areas being developed, including Tyson's, West Falls Church, Largo, White Flint, and more. And even the addition of Amazon HQ2 in Arlington will increase the metro population of the DMV and create a need for late night service. And even though the demographic for late night service is small right now, it is still there. In 2015, the year before late night service was cut, using your own Metro ridership data viewer, there were an average of 2.3K riders from midnight to close on weekdays. But on Friday and Saturdays, that average number shot up to an average of 10K. If Metro provided the service consistently, surely its users would adapt and eventually take advantage of the amenity provided to them. I know that Metro will mainly be used for nightlife during late night hours, but that shouldn't be treated like a bad thing. DC wants to have a thriving and vibrant city culture, and Metro will be the key to helping it grow and getting those people home safely. Like the idea with the redevelopment in Union Station, service should not wait for demand, but should be there before providing it, but rather provide it to help the demand grow. I've seen crowds of people in DC after 3 a.m. waiting on the sides to get home, and this was actually just last week. The Metro should not close down before the city does. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Hello? Hello? Hearing anything? Hello?
Yes, you may speak.
Yes, hello?
Yes, hello, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Sonia Torres, and I'm a Metro Access rider. I live in Silver Spring, Maryland. I am advocating for free fares for Metro Access riders because disabled people are on a fixed income, and we should not be charged twice or even more to use the service. The fare calculator is broken, and I think that it has been charging disabled riders a lot of have been charging disabled riders more than the regular bus rail riders. I feel that I am being punished as a disabled rider when I'm being charged more for using the service. And this one also will resolve the issue of paying fares on the street. Thank you. Hello? 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 Hello?
Just let's double check that.
Nine five nine seven, you're on the line. Can you hear us? Nine five nine seven, can you hear us? No, that's the same one. Yeah, she's the last one on the queue.
Okay, so we are going to reach out to her and make sure that we get her heard. But I think that at this point we should say that that was our last speaker. So this hearing is now concluded. Testimony can still be submitted online or via U.S. mail as long as it is received by Metro by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, February 15th. Or you have the option to speak at tomorrow's hearing in Maryland. And we're going to get all these options to our last caller. Information on that hearing can be found, the Maryland hearing can be found at www.wmata.com/budget. Thank you everyone again for joining us and for taking the time to provide testimony, and have a good evening.